is that the contrast between the clay and the iron oxide gives a Nazca line.
Acre-sized drawings depict a hummingbird, a spider, a killer whale, and a human figure with owl-like eyes.
They would have had observation from the sky in order to guide the workforce on the ground as to how to draw complicated figures such as the spider and the hummingbird.
Preserved for centuries by the lack of wind and rain, the lines are best seen from the air and were first spotted by aviators in the 1930s. But why did the Nazca create patterns that could only be properly seen from a great height?
The obvious answer is because you can see only from the sky. Many of our ancestors will talk about the star people. All the sacred sites, we consider it is for whom? For the star people.
At Nazca and other areas in Peru, there are legends of sky people and gods coming down from the sky.
But might the so-called star people, referred to in the Nazca legends, really have been extraterrestrial beings, as ancient astronaut theorists believe?
In the beginning, there was just one line made by some robot or some extraterrestrial spaceship, some space shuttle, because they were looking for raw material for energy.
After a while, the local population would see all those tracks on the ground. And they would say that these tracks were just left behind by these divine beings, by the gods. And then they would wonder, and what can we do for those gods to return?
According to ancient astronaut theory, the earliest of the Nazca lines were made in imitation of the trails left by the first space visitors. Later generations added more elaborate lines and then shapes and figures, all in an attempt to signal the star gods to return. But they never did.
And this caused the population to doubt the deities, because it was mainly a psychological problem they had with their deities that brought about the abandonment and collapse of the Nazca culture.
But could there be other evidence of alien contact with the ancient people of Peru that is even more astounding than the Nazca lines?
Some of the skulls that we find today, because it's a very dry desert and they're well preserved, are some of the most astonishing, elongated skulls that you'll ever see, and they look like extraterrestrials.
According to Nazca legends, the gods had elongated heads, much like the distended skulls of the controversial Egyptian pharaoh King Tutankhamun and his sister Meritaten.
I honestly believe that the largest of the elongated skulls represent hybrid human beings, dating back thousands of years, who lived here very peacefully and could very well be the ancestors of the Inca. And that could be the reason why the Incas suddenly were these people of incredible sophistication who came from seemingly nowhere. It's possible that they're descendants from star beings.
Were they trying to imitate people they had already seen? Gods from outer space?
Is it possible the ancient Nazca altered their bodies and their lands in order to communicate with or emulate something their ancestors may have witnessed, something out of this world? Perhaps further clues to mankind's extraterrestrial connection can be found in the most remote place on planet Earth, in the South Pacific. The South Pacific Ocean. 2,300 miles west of South America, in one of the most remote places on Earth, giant stone figures stand with their backs to the sea. Called Moai by the native inhabitants, they are the silent sentinels of Easter Island.
The Moais are scattered throughout the island, and they're positioned on top of platforms for the most part. A Moai is a stone sculpture of a deceased ancestor. They were once living individuals who ruled the society or led the society. They were chiefs, and then upon their death, we believe that they've become represented in stone.
Nearly 900 Moai were carved between the 12th and 18th centuries. Hewn with stone tools from volcanic rock, the tallest stands a towering 33 feet high and weighs a staggering 75 tons.
They were probably even more unique looking in the past. They may have been painted, and they also had large white coralized obsidian pupils. So it's a very effective way of kind of telling people, not verbally, but symbolically, that someone's watching you and you should toe the line. You should do what you're supposed to do.
The people who created the Moai called themselves the Rapa Nui, and mainstream historians believe their Polynesian ancestors came to the island in canoes from across the vast Pacific Ocean between 700 and 1100 AD. But over several centuries, for reasons that are still unclear, what was once an island paradise withered into a treeless desert, stalked by famine, violence, and some say cannibalism. When the first Europeans arrived in 1722, the Rapa Nui culture had already been nearly wiped out, and few could imagine how such primitive people could have created the Moai.
How in the heck did they make these? Where did they come from? And how did they move them? Nobody has the answer.
Modern scientists have tried, and so far have failed, to duplicate the feats of the ancient Rapa Nui. In 1987, anthropologist Charles Love used rollers to move a 9-ton Moai replica at Western Wyoming Community College.
Ready on 3. 1, 2, 3. Come on, get it. Good. Thank you. Oh. You'll only be able to punch it about half an inch.
Other researchers have tried pulling Moai with sleds. But there is a unique problem with the idea of moving Moai with sleds or rollers.
When you go to Easter Island, you don't get the impression they had enough wood to have rollers. And in fact, in the 1700s, the first 4 expeditions to Easter Island never really saw a tree. And so that's the real mystery of Easter Island. How can you move a multi-ton statue if you have no trees for rollers?
According to the oral history of the Rapa Nui, the Moai were moved in a very unusual way.
They all reply basically the same thing. The Moai walked to the Ahu, and that's the only explanation that they give.
But who or what had the power to make multi-ton Moai appear to walk to their Ahu, or stone platforms? In 1919, British archaeologist Catherine Routledge, who lived on Easter Island for a year, recorded the legends and testimony of an old woman who said the Moai were moved with a mystical energy called mana. And, according to the oral histories of the Rapa Nui, mana came from the gods.
Mana was a direct gift of the gods given to the Easter Islanders. Was this mana really a type of magical force? Of course not. It was some type of misunderstood technology, some type of a device, an extraterrestrial tool with which you could move those massive Easter Island heads rather easily.
Did early inhabitants of Easter Island really know how to unlock the secrets of gravity using mana? And if so, where might such power over the physical world have come from? Researchers believe there are clues hidden within mysterious written texts called Rongo Rongo, inscribed on pieces of wood, discovered on the island in the 19th century.
This is a Rongo Rongo board, and it's a replica of ones of old. About 25 of them are known. We have had about 6 or 8 different attempts at translating these things with 6 or 8 different results.
You have to ask yourself, how could the Easter Islanders have invented their own writing without some other cultural influence coming there? Would it have been ancient seafarers coming to Easter Island, or perhaps even space visitors?
Further evidence of early contact with otherworldly beings can be found in numerous strange stone carvings called petroglyphs.
What we see in the petroglyph art of the island are these figures of birdmen, these tangaramanus, carved in bas-relief on the rocks on the very edge of the precipice.
In the myths of Easter Island's Rapa Nui, the birdman represents Maki Maki, the chief god and creator of humanity.